Hello, everyone, and welcome back to class meeting number 6, part 3. So in this video here, we're going to answer at least one more question that just came in, and then move into a discussion on the basic concept art for the Elythians, so the way they look. So Mr. Moose had asked about time. I'm looking back up for the question.
Is this going to be a new common time frame for the meetings? Quite possibly.
You know,
it's hard to say.
It's still the lowest number of students that we've had. The U.S. time slot that we used this last Thursday, that was in the evenings. We saw, another
40 some odd?
Almost 20 people on top of this at max. So, we're just looking for the perfect time for the most number of people, and not to mention, we're also watching the numbers because as we get further and further into the class and the excitement dies off, I mean, we've got some awesome diehards that are here almost every time, like Chipsius. Man, he is so awesome. He just, there's no.
He's here almost
this.
as much as I am.
But look at that. How many? Let's see. How
Probably
many
here more often
currently on the webinar? This particular one, we've got 41. We've got Wolfery. Heck yeah, I see you, man. Always there. Gavin, always there. NATO, almost always there.
Oh, you're counting us.
Mute 20. Yeah, the whole yes. Webinar. Mute 209. Don't think I don't notice you here almost all the time. Pez has been with us most of the time. RME.
I love how
Robert Boss, dedicated. I mean, these are,
Yeah, we recognize the names.
Right, T-Gun.
Get used to.
DMJ. I mean, how could we leave out DMJ? There's no way we can. But, we get very familiar with all the names that are here all the time. 3D Spider's done a great job of showing up quite a bit. Meat, we know, but it's okay, man. You're here now. So
I do think it's funny that we have more people in the IRC than we do in the webinar.
Yeah. We've had some discussions about locking it down, but for now we're just going to leave it
Well, it's
open.
not like they can really get anything out of this.
Yeah, not much, exactly. So it's not been an issue. But Wolf Knightley, of course. Wolf Knightley's always here to go along with Wolfery, as I confused both of them to death.
Thought they were the same person for a while.
But as far as a diehard time, we've said before, we don't have a diehard time each week. We may do 2 in a week. We may skip a week. We may do 2 in one weekend like we've done recently. It all depends because, keep in mind, we're doing some really hardcore work over here, and doing these type of meetings, of course, starts to eat into that work time. But I think, so far we've been handling it all pretty well. And as always, I will continue. We're going to continue rotating the class times. I can guarantee you that we really need to, because most everyone that's able to join us now are overseas, where we've got people in the U.S. that are at work right now. So we're just, by rolling times around, we accommodate everybody the best we can, and we'll continue to do that. Were you going to say something, Lee? Okay, I guess not.
No, that wasn't me. I was.
Oh, I got you. That's over at Derek's place.
Derek,
okay, so
sorry, I'm all excited.
It's all good. So, Zach, I'm gonna go ahead and just turn this over to you for the rest of the class now.
Yeah. Well, last night was actually kind of a long night for me. I wrapped up, and earlier in the day, I'd actually talked with Derek about a few things. He had come to me asking for some direction on some ideas for the Elythians, and the Elythians they're kind of my baby in a way, and it's very difficult for me to just give direction and describe what I think an Elythian should look like. So last night I sat down and started sketching one out. And so that's what I was going to do here, was present you guys with my first draft of an Elythian concept. Now, there's a few things I want to, just to kind of throw out as build-ups, to, just to build up the anticipation, I guess. I'm mostly, partially, like probably 60%, married to this overall kind of look. But in that regard, I'm really only saying the basic body type. This is what you're about to see is a highly incomplete piece of concept art. It's just something that I started sketching out and then spent a little time fleshing in the overall look of the body form, but didn't get anywhere near as done as I wanted to. I only had a few hours to kill, and then I absolutely had to go to bed around 5:30 this morning.
Let me do this. Well, I'll let you bring that up, and then after you bring it up, I will quickly grab control and move the chat over into the side window.
So we can at least see
so
chat.
we can continue to see what's being said.
Move.
Actually, I'll do this.
Hey, that way I can see it.
You can see it, too.
That's very nice.
So let me...
Oh my God, Zach, you and I are on the same page with the three fingers. When we were talking, I love Nightcrawler from the X-Men, and I wanted to make it more alien like you were talking about, and you're spot on. Of course you're spot on. This is your baby, but I'm reading your mind.
Well, that's good.
Rick the Blade says, nice six-pack. Thank you, Rick. I've been working hard, and I did a little bit of nude modeling for Zach last night. I still don't honestly understand why it had to be nude modeling.
Well,
he was putting these spandex on him, but he did capture my chest.
After Jason did the modeling for me, I decided that we needed to put some pants on because I ran out of ink in Photoshop. So anyway.
Oh, by the way, Zach is also going to be providing this PSD file to everyone. So as Zach gives you a walkthrough with the PSD file, the reason is so that you guys are familiar with how he's got the layers set up so that you can play with this. Not to mention, you might learn something right now as a Photoshop person.
I hope so, but I mean, it's possible. So there's the overall silhouette. I just had a gradient in the background because they look cool. That's pretty much it.
So let's just start off with just the overall body design.
Well, there were only a few things that I knew I wanted. Now, before anybody asked, because I think everybody who has seen this has all asked me the same question. Yes, they will have hair. I just haven't drawn it yet because, as you can see, a lot of this is highly incomplete. In fact, if I lighten up his legs, you'll see there's absolutely no shading on his legs whatsoever. I just threw some color in there to darken them up. The only time I really spent on the character itself was just up here and shading out the body.
All right, the first mention about it looking like a Smurf. Let's go ahead and change the color for a minute
they know
that.
Yeah, sorry. I stick all this kind of stuff on solid color layers so that I can play with colors. I think this is a really smart way to work, so if anybody ever... I can show you guys how to set this up. But I did like the bluish color. In fact, I think when I first started out, he looked something like this, a very, very pale blue. But I would like the idea that the Elythian skin tone could really make shifts. Also, if you guys are having a hard time seeing anything, the monitor that I'm on right now has terrible color translation. And it'll look very, very dark to me and a lot lighter to you guys. So, you just have to kind of cope with that. But let me do this. In the IRC, I'm going to type out what I'm pretty sure is the download address if you'd like to go ahead and grab the PSD. It is HTTP. Let's see. Let's see if I can get this right on the first try. Actually, I think it's just MMO. And then Elythian concept.
Nope. It is Zach/images/MMO.
No, that's the picture.
Oh, that's the picture.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I see. You got this in a different area.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Because it's not an image. Not technically.
That's a RAR file. Yeah.
All right. See if that will download. Hopefully it will. I guess I could test it.
Well, they'll let us know quickly.
Yeah. Let me know if that works real quick. And if it doesn't, then I may need just a second to verify that I have the right address.
10.7 megs. Yep.
Oh, yep. Cool. So
good deal.
Good. Got that on the first try. So, yeah, the color and everything is really, really up in the air. I just threw it in there so I could have something to shade from. In fact, you could just do this to it if you wanted to and not worry about it. But I do like playing with color. I like seeing how things look, both bright and dark, saturated, desaturated. And you can try out all kinds of things and get a wide variety of pretty nifty effects. Now, let me just talk briefly about the body type on these guys.
He just needs flames on his pecs.
He does, man. It's just such a cool design. Now, this is a pretty high-resolution image, relatively. So I can just kind of start up here with some of the important things that I think stood out to me I did really kind of want to go for the flat face with just the kind of slits for a nose, so nothing that really protrudes out very far. Kind of, sort of reptilian, or I guess amphibious, maybe, more than anything else, because I'm not picturing these guys really being heavily scaled or anything. Looks a bit like a Protoss. I can kind of see that, though a little more in terms of human facial features. Now, this elongated peak at the back of the head, this is a variable feature. This is something that I think would vary from one Elythian to the next. On some, it's very, very pronounced. On others,
The older you are, the further back.
and that would be cool if it really was one of those things that just kind of kept growing along with you.
It starts to curl around.
Even also could be very neat. In terms of hair, now
Well, hang on. Before you
I'm
move
just
off
playing
of
around
the
the head. Yeah, go ahead,
elongated
please,
head,
please.
Another thing we discussed that I liked was that was more...
that's a male trait.
Yeah, it's a male trait.
Yeah, I really don't want the females to have this very much. Now they can have a little bit of a point toward the back of the head, just to show it's not quite as rounded as a human skull. But this is more of a male only feature. So it could be one of those things that maybe years and years and years ago was there for sex appeal. Who knows? Let's see. It's kind of like what I did with the long back of the head, Zach. I didn't see your work, Wolf, but you'll have to point it out to me. Send me a PM so that I can see it. How about some precious substance contained in those humps for which they are killed by Terrans? I'm going to think about that for a while. And then we'll just we'll go on. So yeah, again, definitely something that it would be bone structure. So this would actually be a part of the skull itself. So very rigid in and of itself. Now, let's see, what else? Of course, the ears are pretty obvious. I would like to see a lot of variation in the ears, big, small, outward, backward, maybe forward, just to give them a lot of variety. Now, just because I'm staring at this right now, I am going to change his tone a little bit because the really saturated stuff I just can't stare at for very long. Now, again, I did say that these guys would have hair. I did not play much with the idea of hair. But I really wanted this feature, at least with the guys, to be enough of an accentuated thing where the growth of hair would accentuate it a little more. So I was thinking like the widow peak kind of growing down the center of the head and then wrapping around the sides, almost like when you get sort of like male pattern baldness, how you start to get like the really pronounced widow's peak down the center of the head. Now, I did play very briefly. I've got like a hair layer buried somewhere. I think it's in the boy def, which should be body def. That's horrible. Anyway, so there's me playing with some quick hair. I did like a Japanese knot. Like a samurai, and then gave him some chops, played a little bit of facial hair, and it started to look really cool. But nothing I started realizing. I'd like to see, you could grow like a mohawk down the center of it, or have it all wrap around, maybe pull it to a ponytail that came off the end of the point. All kinds of cool stuff you could do.
Man, with that little, with that hairstyle right there, he just looks like a guy you would not want.
He did, like,
mad.
yeah, exactly. Well, I got the idea from Hellboy, and was it Shogun 2, I think, just launched, which made me think of it. But yeah, as soon as I sketched it on there, I was like, man, he looks like he'd whip out nunchucks and kill somebody. So anyways, that was just a really, really quick hair test that I threw on just for the fun of it, like in 4 seconds. Of course, the rest of the body type is pretty straightforward. Now, this guy is pretty muscular, and of course, I don't necessarily picture all the Elythians being this ridiculously Adonis-like ripped. But it did allow me to really explore the anatomy pretty well. I liked the idea of oversized hands. I liked 3 fingers. These are not hooves. Just in case anybody was...
That's my question.
No, these are not hooves. These are feet with 3 toes, just like 3 hands. They're just covered up because last night it was late and I did not want to try to worry about foreshortened toes at the minute. So I totally cheated and cheaped out because that was my prerogative. But you can see how far I got with the legs in any event. I've got a little bit of a glow effect on the eyes. I like the idea that Elythian's eyes glow. But, in the future, we're going to have human beings with cyber eyes and everything anyway. So if your human's eyes want to glow too, that's, of course, all well and good. And, you can see... Go ahead, Derek, please.
The markings. We talked about tattoos and stuff. A glowing effect. Are those tattoos or are those actual parts of his skin pigment?
Now, these I just threw on to give him a little more variety. And as far as I'm concerned, these are just some skin pigment, and you can turn them off. In fact, in a minute, I'll show everybody how I actually created all the layers for this if you wanted to do something similar. So this will turn into something kind of like a VTM. And Gav actually mentioned earlier that this was done in the same style as the ADP stuff, and it is. I actually really prefer that if I'm doing character concept work, if for no other reason than the cool stuff I can do with color. I really, really enjoy that. Yes, somebody asked if this was a double knee. It is a double knee. In fact, the anatomy would be analogous to, say, the heel of a foot would be back here within a really elongated foot that runs down like so, very much like a dog's hind leg. So in case you're wondering about that. I think it's kind of a cool spin. Yeah, very much like a fawn as well, as Niels just said. To me, it's just a way to pull it back from humans, but still give us something that we can expect and recognize. And let's face it, it looks cool. But along with that, I did not want a tail. No tails. These are not Draenei. I'm not going down that route. I think tails are cool, but they're something that should be functional. Like if you've got a tree-dwelling people. Okay, like the Na'vi, they had tails. But they also do a whole lot of climbing and scurrying around on trees and whatnot. And in terms of the animal kingdom, in a lot of cases, that's what a tail is for. It just helps you with that sense of balance. You can hang it off the edge of a tree. And so it kind of made sense, even if they didn't use it all that much. But I did not want tails. So if you get the Photoshop file and you draw a tail on it, that's fine, knock yourself out. But that's not something I was looking at going with. That said, I did make this Photoshop file available to any of you who want to play with it. If you want to sketch on it, if you want to draw clothes on it, if you want to redesign it, redo it, make any changes, anything you like, knock yourself out. I only threw it out there for you to have fun with. So anything anybody wants to do there, no tentacles either. Though you could do like the little alien thing with like the weird things that come off the back. Anyway, sorry, no. Distracted. Okay, let me give you a quick rundown of how this was drawn. And I realize, we try not to turn these too much into VTMs, but,
it's a class. Have fun with it.
Yeah, just kind of because it's fun. So here's literally what I started off with. I didn't delete any of my layers. So everything that you see, I'd originally wanted to give him something like a spear or whatever. And as a matter of fact, I think I've just turned down the opacity of that. So there's the first sketch. So for all of you who are like, man, but I can't draw, this is where it started. In fact, it started with just the little stick figure wires that you see holding everything up. And then I started adding on the shapes all around it. And then, let's see, let me start playing with opacities real quick. We'll pull that down, and we'll pull this one up. On top of that, I just sketched this out real quick. So just kind of flushing out generally where volumes would go. A little bit of really basic muscle structure that I know is not anatomically accurate, but the whole look was cartoony enough.
Dude, we're talking about aliens. How do you know it's not
I can
correct?
make it up. Right.
Right.
He has no nipples. Did you notice that? There's a reason. Also, I get asked this question a lot. How do you do... let's see if I can jump all the way back. Turn on the body lines, turn this off, and maybe turn... Oh, well, there you go. The little wrinkles there at the fingers. How do you do the bunching up of the hand? Now, I'm not going to say that's right or the best way in the world to do it, but just how I approach that, if anybody was ever curious, take a look at this. All I did was just draw some volume spheres that would kind of... spheres, they're circles. That would pretty much comprise each section of the finger, and then where the three of those intersect, that defines the shape of how that bunching would look. And that's a really nice cheat to get that exact same effect. So if I turn the opacity of this down and turn on the body lines, you can see how that kind of worked out. Mm-hmm. And it ends up looking pretty nice.
Well done.
So if you're looking for a cheat to do that, that's a one that I use all the time. So I did away with putting the staff on the guy. If you take a look really close, there's some pentimento, some change of mind lines here. His hand was turned the other way so he could hold on to some sort of a staff or something. And then I totally did away with that and switched him over to just holding some sort of a sword, and this other hand was a fist. I tried so many poses of opening this hand up or closing it or half curling it or making it look like he was snapping his fingers in tune to some jazz or something, and nothing was working. So I just curled it up into a fist and left it. Now, from here, I started playing with all the actual outlines. And I wanted to break these up in case I needed to change things later. So there's, of course, just an out trace of the head. And when I do this, what I do is I just zoom in really, really close. And even here, these lines are pretty messy. And I wouldn't mind going back in and redoing them at some point. But it was just one of those things. Late at night, getting an idea down. And then, of course, we've got the same lines for the body, just tracing out the same decision lines I made earlier. One thing I did not do much of is draw any of the internal lines. Really, all I did was do outline tracing. I started to do the collarbone and the neck, and then I was like, I should probably stop there because I don't want to define all of the muscle structure outside of the shading world. And then I had just enough time to trace out the legs. And so once I had that, I'm sorry I keep beeping at you guys. That's Photoshop not liking that I'm using the Alt key and then the space bar. So if I turn all this stuff off, this is kind of what we ended up with. Now, the shading was its own little beast. The very first thing I always do with shading is drop in a swatch of color. Just completely fill it out like a 1970s kind of cartoon. Oh, they can't hear that beeping. Well, that's good.
Oh, well, cool.
Bonus.
But they will in the video.
Yeah, you will in the video. You'll hear the Windows chime as I jump back and forth. So this is just a solid color layer. And if you're ever doing any concept art, as far as I'm concerned, the more stuff you can do on a solid color layer, the better. You need to know how masks work. And as far as I'm concerned, and this is really snobbish sounding, I don't mean it to sound snobbish, but until you know and love how masks work, you don't know Photoshop at all. You're not there yet, and you need to work on it. But the long and short of it, to make this happen, is you just drop down a solid color layer and pick any color of the rainbow. In fact, usually the first time I draw something, it's some outlandish color, like neon green, just to help me get placement right. Then grab your mask and hit Control-I to invert it. And now you're ready to paint. So you get your brush out. Make sure you're painting with white. If you need to do that, just hit D. That sets you to the default colors. And just start painting. Now, of course, I have a mouse right now, and I don't ever paint with a mouse. So, but I mean, so here's the idea. You would use this to fill out the entire body, and then you've got this really killer color swatch here where you can change that to any color of the rainbow. And that's all I did for the main color of the body. As a matter of fact, if I Alt-click, you can see the mask that I actually painted out. Cool. Now, did the same thing with the legs and gave them just some sort of an arbitrary color. And that was just our basis. Now, from here, we started playing with shading. Shading started off very, very rough. It was just scribbles. Scribbles in black, as a matter of fact. So if I take the opacity and crank it all the way up, that's all I did for shading. And in a lot of cases for straightforward concept work, that's fine. You could just leave it like that and go home for the rest of your day. Derek,
I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm out of here. See ya.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and this is a perfectly viable means of shading, and Derek's really good at it. Derek's a heck of a lot better than this, and he does it so much faster.
I'm learning
than me.
so much from you because I work with pencils and pens. You're like in the modern age.
Yeah, but
I'm playing the dinosaurs in the backyard.
But I totally admire your work for that. So
well, thank you.
So anyways, so I just got down some basic structure for the shading, and then we started actually creating the shade levels themselves. Now let me take this and turn it down, because really the scribble stuff you just saw was just a guide for me to figure out where stuff would go. And then what I did is actually draw out solid shapes. Now some special things about this layer. All I really did was this. I created a brand new fresh layer, like layer 7 you see here. I Alt-dragged my color mask on top of it. What does that do? It's actually kind of a neat trick. What this allows you to do is to constrain your shading so it only sits on the body. So that now, if I take I'm going to paint with bright green just to prove a point. If I needed to paint like a green stripe down my character's body, I could start painting, and I guess it would help if I actually chose a color. Oh, make sure you're painting on the layer and not on the mask, Zachary. So I can paint right along his body, and then when I get to the shoulder, it automatically cuts off. That's why you stick the mask on it. It restricts you to only being able to paint right on the character.
Cool mask.
Yeah, I know. There you go. And it is neat. You can do some neat stuff right away, especially if you're just trying to paint right on the surface of a character. So again, it's that whole using of masks. Now, the other things about this, you'll notice it's a color burn layer. Since I'm painting with black, that's not entirely necessary. I could set it to normal and you wouldn't notice a change. It's just a habit. If I know I'm going to be darkening something, multiply would also work pretty much just as well. So, of course, take your pick. But I did pull the opacity down to somewhere around 40%. Of course, here's what it looks like in black, which is pretty cool and highly dramatic. But if you want it to feel like there's some ambient light, by all means paint it like this. But when you're done, pull it down to somewhere around 40%. And that just gives you, it looks like you're not in super high contrast land, that there is a little bit of ambient light lightening up the shadows of your scene. Now for the next layer of shading, all I did was take the existing layer that I already had, so this layer that you see here, and I duplicated it. So just Alt-drag a copy of it upward to sit on top. Take this new copy and pull its opacity down by about half, and then paint additional shading on top of it. So, and again, this is with my mouse and really kind of ugly, and I was zoomed in and doing much sharper lines, of course. But that's the idea. Just paint another layer, and you'll see this new one, skiing or sking shade.
Sking.
It was late, so all my names are messed up. So Skin Shade 2 is down at around 19% opacity, or about half of 40. So you get this kind of second stage. Really, what we're doing is faking toon shading. That's all there is to it, just another layer of darkening. Then on top of that, we added Shine. This is an add layer, and all I'm doing is painting white and pulling the opacity down to 30%. So if I pull this all the way up, he's very shiny. And you don't even really need an add layer if you're painting white. Add would be more important if you were painting with a color because it'll add the colors together. But again, that's just habit for me. But the neat thing about doing that is if you end up adding some color to it, like if you drop on a layer style for a color overlay, because you want your shininess to have some sort of a tint to it, it will start adding those colors together, and you can start getting some more interesting specular style effects. So it is kind of a good habit to get into, even if you're not using it right away. And so that was all of our shading. Now the neat thing about working in that way with our burn and our add layers is that we can, at any point, go all the way back to our color, and as you've already seen, we can update that color and all of our shading will just come along for the ride.
Very nice.
Which does a really good job of just allowing you to test things out if you want to go for the Smurf, or like the hardcore Smurf.
Yeah.
Or
You ain't in Kansas anymore, baby.
Actually, when I was doing it last night, I started giving him like a darker kind of almost like a African American tone, and he started reminding me of Onomaus from Spartacus.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But anyway, so you can sit there and play with that and have all kinds of fun. Now, there is a splotch layer. Now, this is just a trick. I love doing this. This was very, very easy to create. All we did was we created a hue saturation layer. In fact, I could make another one real quick if you just want to see how this works. So here we are at the base color for the skin. Oh, wrong button, excuse me. And let's create a brightness contrast. No, not a brightness contrast. Where'd my layers go? Hue saturation. Click the wrong one. Now, change this to whatever you like, right? So maybe, I don't know, whatever color that happens to be. And then all we're going to do is replace our layer mask first off. See, right now all of this is being changed. We can't really tell because the background is white. So it just looks like he's changing, but actually everything on the page is changing. It's just the pants are on top of that. If I was to take our background, I'll just show you real quick just to kind of prove the point. Notice the color I've selected for our background. It's bright red, but it's showing up as blue because of our hue saturation layer. It's mucking with the color. So just so you know that that's kind of going everywhere. What we're going to do, though, is copy off the mask that we applied to our skin, and we'll replace the layer mask. Now, I did that with an Alt-drag for those of you who aren't super Photoshop savvy. So now I can turn this off. So now that hue saturation is only affecting our character's skin. So now get out your paintbrush and paint black. So we'll hit D and then X to flip around to black. Grab our paintbrush. And now if we go right onto the mask for our hue saturation layer, we can start more or less erasing out the effect. So we can erase it off his belly, and then erase it off his neck, and then erase it off his face. And then maybe erase it off his hand. And already we've got a different style.
Now, Bono Bob asks if there is a tutorial on this in Photoshop or similar on 3D Buzz.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys as member sponsors, remember there's so much more beyond the MMO class. If you go through the ADP stuff and look for the concept art section, you spend a lot of time.
Yeah, for the Goblin or the Knight, it doesn't really matter, whichever one you want to follow. The concept art is handled in the exact same manner I'm describing here.
Except you teach it all.
Except I teach it all, and you see every single brush stroke. So
Yep.
if you want to go study that, by all means do it. I'm just giving those of you who haven't seen that a really quick overview, and if you have a little bit of background in Photoshop, you can probably follow along just fine. If you find yourself confused, then just go check out those videos, and they'll walk you through it. So anyways, now that you've seen that, the cool thing about using the hue saturation effect is that all you're doing is offsetting the original color that was already there. As a matter of fact, if you offset it by 180 degrees, you know you're always using a complementary color. So if you want to play with that, and then of course you can adjust how saturated or desaturated it is, or how light or how dark it is. And then my favorite part is that as you go back to your original color and start changing it, all colors will update accordingly. So you can get all kinds of different effects very, very quickly and easily. Now, on my little OMG splotches layer, all I did was I grabbed a scratchy brush that I think I downloaded off the internet and just put down a few stamps of that just to give some interesting variation. So it could be like birthmarks, it could be like some sort of spatter. At one point, whatever color I'd put on him, as well as the combination of settings, made it look like he was covered in blood. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just having fun with it. So that's pretty much all there was to that. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this out so everything's back to kind of where it was. And that's pretty much the whole thing.
Cool.
I mean, are there any questions at all? Oh, what'd you say, Derek?
I very much like the workflow. Again, working in the Stone Age, I mean, after I pencil and ink with all my line weight variation, then scan it in and drop color,
Yeah.
it takes forever.
Now, do you have a tablet at home, Derek?
No, I paint with a mouse.
I gotcha.
As I'm holding my head.
No, I mean, one does what one must. Though, if you are drawing with pencil and paper, you do, as long as you've just inked, and you've got like the harsh black and white, one of the tricks you can do is take whatever you've drawn and drop it into a solid color layer. Like, for instance, let me just show you real quick so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I'm going to take all this stuff. This is just kind of a quick tip on the fly, so to speak. So I'll clean off my canvas. Let me get any one of my lines. Let me do the headlines because that's at least something we can easily recognize. And I'm going to make a duplicate of that up here. So let's just say this was something that you had scanned in and you'd actually drawn this, and this is kind of what it looked like. Generally speaking, this will be, as a matter of, if I hit Control-A, Control-Shift-C, and then Control-V, this is what you often have, a solid white image that happens to have your picture on it. That's like how a scan will come in. Now, if you have any artifacting from the scan of your paper, like smudges or a little bit of browning or yellowing, that sort of thing, blow that out with contrast. If you need to, go under Image, Adjustments, and run it through a black and white filter, and make sure that all you have left is black, white, and maybe a few shades of gray. Does that make sense?
Roger that.
Okay. Now, once you have that, grab everything. So Control-A, Control-C in this case. We don't need to use Shift-C, so Control-C to copy. Then we can drop down a new solid color. We'll leave it at black for now. Hold down Alt and click on your mask, and you see your mask is filled with complete white. Hit Control-V to paste. Now, what have we just done? We've pasted our drawing right into our mask for our solid color. Why is that important? Well, let's see. If I hit Control-D, let's hide out our picture. Here's what we have. We have a solid black world with a white line drawing that you can just barely make out. But if we grab our mask and invert it, Control-I, boom. We have our lines right back the way they were. Why would you want to do this? Well, this is a neat way for you to be able to paint color directly underneath whatever you've sketched. So if you've done, some sort of really cool drawing with pencil and paper, if you went through the steps that I just described, and now we can take our little new red solid color, grab its mask, hit Control-I to invert. I can now paint directly underneath, and my lines still show up.
Nice.
The other neat thing, too, is if you decide later on that you wanted to see what this looked like if drawn in a blue mechanical pencil, it's just a matter of changing that color swatch. Or see it in red,
nice.
However you want to do it. So a whole lot of extra stuff to play around with. I love doing concept art like this in Photoshop. I usually inundate all of my files with various solid color fills so that I can make all kinds of quick changes on the fly. And I know that's way outside the scope of what we were discussing. I'm just kind of throwing it out there in case any of you want to play with it as a concept. But that's pretty much all I have for you.
So if there's any extra or any additional questions,
if you guys have any comments, questions, anything else that I can help you out with, now is the time to get those out. I'll go ahead and turn this guy back on because he's cool looking, and I'll go back in and we'll turn his little background on.
I have a question for you, Zach. As far as the concept that I've been doing, do you want me to do it in color or just black and white for the moment?
Up to you. I'm fine with color.
Okay.
I like exploring color palettes. Now, you're the guy who actually is using up your color ink. So if you don't want to do that, or if you're scanning in and doing color digitally, that's one thing. I know you go through those color pens like a fiend. So if you don't want to waste those until you have a more solid idea of color palettes, I understand that too. By all means, be conservative. Somebody asked a couple of things. Have you pondered how the 3-point hand affects weapons, by the way? In terms of interesting shapes, they don't need triggers, just great big meaty hands for the sword handle. Well, I'm not really thinking these guys are going to have a whole lot of weapons that involve the classic trigger anyway.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think they really need it. Okay, and you could picture, what if they have something like a crossbow? You could still have some sort of trigger-like mechanism on a crossbow that was operated with your thumb if you wanted to get really, really technical on that. Mm-hmm. But even then, I don't necessarily see the need for that. I would probably see these guys with some sort of really cool bow, which may or may not have a string and may or may not shoot actual arrows. It could be something where they started out that way thousands of years ago, but have since found ways to harness the power to mimic it and are just using something shaped like a bow as sort of a focus. And that's getting out there with the imagination, I know.
So we're not going to be able to switch weapons from humans to the Elythians then, because they wouldn't be able to pull the triggers.
I would say no, right off the bat. But we'll kind of have to explore that as we go. But it does make sense to say no right now. Right. Zach, what kind of tablet do you use? This, I use a bunch of them, but this was done with an old-fashioned. Sad to say, it's old-fashioned. Intuos 3 6x8. Not even the Cintiq. It's just your basic 6x8 tablet. I didn't even really need all the crazy pressure sensitivity settings, so even a cheaper Bamboo would probably be just fine. If you find that the smaller sizes are restricting, but that's all you can afford, just zoom in. Get really close to what it is you're drawing, and then suddenly your tablet will feel huge no matter what its size is. And everybody wants a Cintiq, Dark Mobius. Everybody wants a Cintiq. Use monochrome if you have a black and white monitor. Yeah, you can take your work, and actually this is something that's also fun to do, is go up to your very highest layer and then just come in here to your effects layers and drop on a black and white and just see what your work looks like in monochrome. And if you want to take it, you can tint it. But that's just really, really basic Photoshop stuff if you just want to see what it looks like. Zach, have you tried doing different silhouettes? I can see this being really good further down when you add Terrans, so you can distinguish between races in the game. Well, that's kind of where I started here when I started coloring things in. I'm a big fan of making sure the silhouette looks at least understandable. Is it readable? Can you tell that there is somebody standing here? In fact, if I zoom out a little bit, and let's do a couple of things. Let's grab our color and just push that to black. I can turn off all of our shading. I'll take the pants and push those to, wrong layer. Pants are up here, thank you. Push those to black as well. And if I turn off the background, it was important to me that you be able to see what it is you're looking at. And you could tell that this was a humanoid figure. You could see some sort of a shape, and you could see that it had some double-hinged knees.
Lee's new height map.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I think silhouettes are an important thing when you're drawing this kind of thing because you do want to be able to identify one race from another. Now, at a distance in a game, things always get a little bit iffy, so the way they move is going to be important. Color schemes and things are going to be very important. and the little red tag that sits over an enemy that's about to kill you will probably also end up being important, but that's a gameplay thing. Zach, have you thought of some kind of energy point in the center of their palms? You mean like Iron Man? Like that's some sort of glowy thing in the middle of his head? Can he shoot like big like yellow lasers out of it and blow people
No, man,
away?
didn't you see I Am Number 4?
Flowers.
I did not see I Am Number 4, actually.
That's how his hands worked.
Oh, it looked like they were on
Really?
fire in the previews.
Yeah, no, it's like bright light that comes out of him.
E.T. kind of
What
had that
the
too,
chick
but it was in
did,
his
she
finger.
looked really hot.
Oh my God, the chick was just awesome.
Yeah.
She like could start running and just it was like
Was being hot her special power?
disintegrate into just a bunch of swirly power electrical lines and then just vanish
Oh,
and
wow.
then just drop down on top of you or behind you and like rematerialize. It looked really cool. Nice fact.
So anyways, basic reason for human hostility to Elythians will be jealousy of their physiques. They'll be pulling all the Earth chicks. Absolutely.
That'll be a lot of fun to explore.
We are from France.
Yeah, but you remember in the
Sorry,
story?
couldn't-
Everybody remember the story that Elythian cells have this funny knack for attacking human cells? It might not be a really good thing to explore, actually.
I'm pregnant. My God, the baby exploded.
Exactly.
Like a big pimple.
I already mentioned that I
Moving
didn't
on.
put nipples on this guy.
Gav, we'll let you add nipples.
Yes.
They're going to be gigandous.
Yes. Just
Does he have a belly button?
he does, but you can't really make it out in this particular.
I mean,
picture.
I'm not a big belly button fan, but I just did,
Yeah.
how they were made. Okay.
Yeah. I actually did picture him. The babies would actually have an umbilical.
Okay.
A lot of that structure is very similar to human beings. Zach, have you given thoughts to the differences between males and females? I have given thoughts to it, but since I only drew this guy last night, I mean, really, the drawing you're looking at is not even 12 hours old yet. I just haven't had time to draw them both.
And there's Wolf Knightley's concept stuff. That he
Oh, yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Very similar ears.
I think everybody knew right off the bat the Elythians would have to have pointy ears. It's just something about having anything named an Elythian. It's like the name pretty much, it should translate to pointy ear. Space elves.
Which-
That's right.
I can do this, by the way, for people that are,
That want to see.
that are in the class. Doodaloo, chikank. So there's Mr. Wolf Knightley's work that he just shot over to
Oh,
Zach.
heck, I can do this. Let's copy the image, come over here.
He's talked to me a
file
couple times. He's
new.
like, "Oh, I haven't had time to draw."
Okay,
He did a really good
paste.
job.
Yeah.
Go ahead and pull this up to the front. There we go.
And we'll pull that back up to the front so we can see everybody. So here's what Wolf Knightley put together. And let's do a couple of things to it real quick. I want to just play with
He just
weapons.
wanted to draw a naked chick.
Could be. I don't want to hear anything about that from you, though.
I know. I was going to give him a
Derek's
thumbs
like,
up.
I know.
I mean, from anyone but you, I might accept that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole pot and kettle thing kind of shuts you down.
Yes, I will be quiet.
So they're kind of push it out to black and white. So that would actually start out as a pretty good underdrawing if you wanted to use that and start dropping in color and whatnot. The only thing I would advise here is keep track of volume for the head and shapes like that. Like your head looks really, here, let me get my pointer out. This head looks really flattened from front to back. It just doesn't look like it would be particularly feasible. I mean, like, look at the size of the eye. I mean, that eye would be a sphere about this big, which would consume the bulk of the inside of the head, and everything else would be really flattened.
So they got big eyes.
So they got big eyes, Zach, Quit riding
Better
me.
to see you with.
Yes, exactly.
The other thing, if you look at the eyes, they look like like red hot pokers are coming towards me. You, again, want to kind of put a lid on it. Does it make sense? You know what I'm talking about?
I sort of know what you're
Where
talking about.
it's not like she's like staring out like, oh my God, they're going to poke my eyeballs out with that big red poker coming towards them.
Let's see here. I
Then you
just wanna-
get sultry looks, and pretty looks.
Even that's a little better. Anyway. So, yeah.
Cool. Well,
They look like they could be related.
again, this at least gives you guys an idea of how Zach was seeing the Elythians in his mind. For those of you that would like to take the Photoshop file and have some fun with it, start putting on some hair, or even just use this as a reference to draw some Elythians in different poses, that would be very cool.
Well, I do want to mention this real quick. This is a really big Photoshop file. It's 16 by 20 at 300 DPI. So I imagine everybody will be fine opening that. But if for some reason your computer balks at it, you can, of course, grab me or anybody else who might have downloaded the file, and I'll be happy to size it down to something a bit more manageable and send you another copy. Just let me know.
Yeah. Well, I guess that really does bring us to a point where we can wrap the class up for today. Good class. It allowed us to, one, remind everyone that we are still working on the video system. What is it? Oh, NATO.
NATO.
Good heavens.
Anyway.
But the video system is still being worked on. It's not been forgotten by no means. We will get something sorted. And thank you for being patient with us. We spent a bit of time with Lee going over what we're looking at for R&D sessions 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Of course, we said that the order is up to change. Oh, Mr. Robert Boss said that the videos work fine in IE. And we also had somebody recently, I think, Zach, it was you, that had asked them to move from Chrome
to Firefox.
Firefox, and then Firefox
And that seemed to be okay.
was working very well. Oh, that was Derek. So Derek, in Firefox, did it?
Yeah.
No problems?
No problems.
Okay.
A lot better. That when I was on Chrome, it just, the video you told me to listen to, it just kept busting. And I called Zach, and yeah, we came with the decision, hey, idiot, move to Firefox. That's a great idea.
Okay.
And yes, and since then, no problems.
Okay.
And Gav mentioned something about putting like the full-size image up on the forums. I will make a forum post that will have a download link for the RAR file for those who were not here in the show. But no, I won't be actually posting the image.
Okay, looking at paperwork. So all of that was covered with Lee. And again, this is... ooh, there is a... Lee, you still there?
Of course.
Most people watching this class file probably won't make it all the way to this point. We could talk about something that we're interested in doing. Or we could do it in the next and make it a short one. Short video.
What's that?
You know what I'm talking about. The interesting thing with the MMO class that kind of...
Oh, yeah. Well, we haven't really talked to Zach about that yet.
I know. We could do it with him live.
Do it
and
on
we
the
could
fly,
also
it's fine.
get other people's opinions.
I'm all for it. You should do it.
All right, so maybe I'll just do that in another video real quick. But anyways, after all of that with the upcoming development stuff, because development stuff right now is simply being focused on the world creation, so that we know what we can do inside the world itself. As soon as we get the video system under control, then Nelson and I, he's got some mock-ups done. A bunch of HTML done now, and we will get that project management system up and going with all videos being recorded for you guys to follow along with, or just utilize the system itself, because you guys will all get your own accounts. And then Zach's gone over a gameplay storyboard playthrough type of a reading, and then discussed Elythian character design. So a lot of good stuff that got covered. I have one more thing that it's not going to be something we're going to put up as a question for everybody. It's just something we're considering, and some of you may find this very interesting. Others may dislike it. I don't know, but I think it's only fair if we tell you what we're thinking. So I'll go ahead and wrap this video up, and we'll put that in the next video. That way we know most people will see it. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.